All right, everyone. Hello, it's the 411 Ground and Pound MMA podcast, your weekly look into the wide, wacky, wonderful world of mixed martial arts. I'm Robert Winfrey. I'm your host. Got to eat a little bit of crow this week, just a little bit. I erroneously assumed that there was going to be an event on Saturday, the event that I loosely previewed last time, without double checking, but it turns out that, May 29th was the one Saturday of the quarter that the UFC took off. So I'll give you a preview of that here, maybe a little bit more in depth. Talk some news of the week, such as it was. There was a couple of things worth talking about in the combat sports space. And then we'll go ahead and get out of here. So I don't anticipate a very long podcast this time. So in honor of that, please, you listening, like, comment, subscribe, share. That's really all you can do, and I really would appreciate it. I know there are people who listen to this, not a tremendous amount, but I know there are people who listen. Please, whatever your podcast platform of choice, interact with the product. Whether that's a star rating review, again, a star rating, a written review if that's potentially relevant, a comment on whatever the episode happens to be, and really sharing is kind of the biggest thing you can do. Tell other people that you like the show on whatever your social media platform of choice happens to be, or multiples if that's what you do. I don't care. I don't judge. Well, not about that. Other things, yes. So if you would help us out with that, would help the show out a lot. I'd appreciate it greatly. Thank y'all very much for that in advance. All right, let's jump into this. Let's jump in here. UFC on ESPN Plus 47. We have a little bit more clarity. Again, there were a few fights last week that had no opponent set up. They were looking for replacements. We also have a little bit more of a finalized bout order. Yeah, a little bit more finalized. So, here we go, such as it is. Your main event is still Jairzinho Rozenstruik and Augusto Sakai. Rozenstruik still has to kind of make good after a dismal performance against Cyril Gane. Sakai's been a little bit up and down. He's coming off of that loss, I believe, when Alistair Overeem. That was his first loss in the UFC, when Overeem battered him for 4 rounds and then 30 seconds into the 5th stopped him. So both guys coming off of main event losses. But the UFC has to keep the machinery turning, and I know which fight I would have put as the main event. It wouldn't have been this one, but I'm not going to complain too heavily about it. This is not a terribly deep card in that respect. Sakai's got some fast hands when he chooses to use them. He just doesn't choose to throw a whole lot, which could be said of Rozenstruik as well. Rozenstruik's a bit more of a diverse striker. He has a kickboxing background. I tend to lean towards Rozenstruik here. The man, he really needs a win. He really needs to get back on the horse. Let's see. Co-main event, another heavyweight fight. Walt Harris and Marcin Tybura. I'm pretty sure I picked Tybura here, and I stand by that. Won't be shocked either way. And if this were 5 rounds, I'd pick Tybura in a heartbeat. But Tybura's a durable heavyweight with good heavyweight cardio. Harris kind of struggles down the stretch. So Harris might catch Tybura early, but short of that, I think Tybura probably takes this. Middleweight, Roman Dolidze and Laureano Staropoli. I think I went with Dolidze. He's coming off of his first loss. He lost to Trevin Giles, whereas Staropoli has 2 losses. He's 2-2 in the UFC. And those losses aren't to chumps. I'll pick Dolidze, but again, that's a pretty close one. Here's the best fight on the card. Santiago Ponzinibbio and Miguel Baeza. I think I gushed about this one last time. You have Ponzinibbio, a perpetually unheralded guy at welterweight who was one of the better guys in the world, who was kept down due to a little bit of inactivity and the stupidity of the rankings. Coming off of, unfortunately, a loss, he lost a really long winning streak when he was knocked out by Li Jingliang, that being January of this year. So he needs to bounce back, and you've got the up-and-coming Miguel Baeza, who's undefeated, 10-0, 3-0 in the UFC, all 3 finishes. Baeza looks like he's the real deal. This is the best fight on the card. I lean a little bit Ponzinibbio, but at his age, and in this division, and as good as Baeza's looked, I'm not at all going to be shocked if Baeza pulls this one out. If he does, this will be a very, very telling, very significant win for Baeza, who Again, he's looked good, but at 10-0, again, Ponzinibbio represents an incredibly significant step up in opposition. I mean, Baez's last fight was, who was it? Takashi Sato. Sato's no chump, but he's not at all Ponzinibbio. So, next up, middleweight, Dushko Todorovic and Gregory Rodriguez. I go with Todorovic. Yeah, he's Todorovic. This was supposed to be Todorovic against Maki Pitolo. Rodriguez stepping in on short notice. I feel okay picking Todorovic here. Is it Todorovic? I forget which way he likes that pronounced. Either way. Going with Todorovic at the moment because I'm pretty sure I think that's how he prefers it pronounced, so we'll go with that. Tom Breeze and Antonio Arroyo. No problem picking Breeze there. As for the prelims, Montana De La Rosa and Ariane Lipski. Feel okay picking De La Rosa, but the wheels have come off of that a little bit. And if she loses again here, oh boy. Heavyweights, Tanner Boser and Ilir Latifi. Picked Boser, but God, who cares? Another really good fight, actually, here at welterweight, also at welterweight. Francisco Trinaldo and Muslim Salikov. I like Salikov for this fight, but old man Trinaldo putting it on people. You know, good for Trinaldo, man. He's been around for a while. I think I mentioned that. That dude's been in the UFC since, what, 2012? Yeah, he beat Dayson Heleno, fighting all the way up at middleweight on short notice. And Heleno was supposed to be something. You guys, I don't know how long any of you have been around the sport, but I remember Delson Heleno had a bit of hype coming out of the IFL. The IFL, another thing that a lot of you might not even know existed necessarily, but some talented guys came through that promotion when it was active. So yeah, Trinaldo, man, that dude's been in the trenches. Not just the length, not just the years. He debuted in June of 2012, so he's coming up on 9 years in the UFC. That's almost all been at lightweight. He's at welterweight for this fight, and again, his debut is at middleweight. And he wins more than he loses, and that's a heck of a thing over that period of time. He's got some really good wins, too, needs to be noted. He has some really good wins. I like Salikov here, but I got a soft spot for Trinaldo. Lightweight, Alon Patrick and Mason Jones. I'm picking Patrick there, man. Patrick was looking like he was going to be something. Again, you guys may not remember this, because back in, 2014, he was undefeated. Then he got stopped by Mairbek Taisimov, which was a big win for Taisimov. Then he fought a bit, but he missed a couple of years. He's not been very active, especially recently. There was a time when he was a very viable prospect, but that was a few years ago at this point. So if he wants to get back on track, he needs this win. Women's flyweight, Menon Foyo and Marina Moroz, not Rodriguez. I think I picked Moroz in this one, but that's really iffy. Sean Woodson and Yusuf Zalal. I'm picking Zalal, but again, that's someone that the wheels came off of just a little bit, didn't they? Kind of all in a hurry for a guy who looked good. He looked real good for a while, and then back-to-back losses, and he's young enough he could easily make the adjustments, but they need to be made. Claudio Puelles and Jordan Levitt. I was okay picking Puelles. Puelles, where's he from? I believe he's Chilean. Peruvian. I'll go with Puelles. Yeah, the double L then makes a different sound. I'm going with Puelles. And somewhere on the card, Makwan Amirkhani will fight Kamuela Kirk. I don't mind picking Amirkhani against... I was probably going to pick Nate Landwehr to beat Amirkhani. Landwehr just a durable guy who's going to be there for 3 rounds, and that's something that Amirkhani struggled with. But against somebody on short notice, I feel perfectly fine picking Mr. Finland there. So that is such as it is for the moment. UFC on ESPN plus 47. I will have coverage Saturday in the MMA Zone of 411 Mania, so please do stop by and say hello if you are so inclined. I always appreciate it. But we did that fast. Like I said, it's not a terribly compelling card, and I did already kind of have what I wanted, had my thoughts already in order for that one. All right, moving on. Let us jump to some news. Featherweight fight. Max Holloway will stay busy and will fight fellow contender Yair Rodriguez. Um, that will be on the July 17th event. They will be headlining. So we'll finally, allegedly, get Yair in a 5-round fight. Um, I can't complain about this fight in a vacuum because it's a good fight. We've all been kind of dying for Yair to take a step up in competition. I mean, the last time he took a step up, he got smashed by Frankie Edgar. Then, he got the Hail Mary knockout over the Korean Zombie, but he was losing that fight. Then when he finally got around to fighting Jeremy Stephens after the eye poke incident in their first fight, he faded so badly in that third round. I mean, so badly. I honestly would not have hated a 10-8 for Stephens in that third round of that fight. I don't think I went that way, and I don't think anyone else did, but boy, if that fight had been 5 rounds, Yair would have been in serious trouble. Now, then that's just Jeremy Stephens. I don't mean to say that Jeremy Stephens is some chump, but Jeremy Stephens is most certainly not Max Holloway. If your cardio is not in shape for 5 rounds, Max Holloway is going to drown you. He just is. Yair has a lot of power, especially in his kicks. I just don't see him stopping Max. I mean, Max Holloway he's never been stopped with strikes, I seem to recall. Let me double check that because I don't want to speak out of turn. But his first loss was in the UFC when he was submitted by Dustin Poirier. Lost a split decision to Dennis Bermudez that he should have won. Lost a unanimous decision to Conor McGregor. His ridiculous winning streak to winning the title and defending it twice. Loses to Dustin Poirier up at lightweight, decision. Beats Frankie Edgar, then loses twice to Volkanovski, decisions. Yeah, that man has never been stopped with strikes, and that includes fighting Dustin Poirier at lightweight. When Dustin Poirier packs a punch. I'm not saying Yair can't connect with something and potentially hurt Max, but I don't find that terribly likely. And Yair's cardio being what it is and his style being what it is, that's a rough fight for Yair Rodriguez. Yeah, that's a really rough fight. Oh, sorry, I might have unintentionally insulted Yair there when I mentioned we finally see him over 5 rounds. He did fight 5 rounds against Alex Caceres once. It's the other featherweight up-and-comer who's loose information about Zabit here, Zabit Magomedsharipov. Apparently his lingering COVID issues are going to cause him to be delayed, returning for maybe a while. He's not coming back until he feels physically ready to, which I don't begrudge him or anyone else doing that, especially if you're recovering from an illness as potentially serious as COVID is. And COVID, even with its very high survivability rate, all things considered, and that's not a political statement, that's mathematically accurate. COVID's issue was never its lethality, it was its transmissibility. You can have something with a low mortality rate, but if it effectively transmits to giant segments of the population, 1% of 300 million people is still a lot of people. And I say 300 million because that's give or take the population of the United States of America. And again, what's 1% of 1% of 300 million is 3 million. That's a lot of people. Now, it's not it's not quite that bad if we look at the actual numbers. Based on your total death count, so I mean, I don't want to get down into that whole thing. Point being, while COVID may not have the highest mortality rate, there are some people that have had some very severe long-term, to the extent that we have long-term after the infection, long-term consequences of that. So how that potentially plays out for him remains to be seen. But he's the one that we can't get to fight 5 rounds. Yair has once, I want to say. In the Stephens fight went the zombie fight went into the 5th. So Rodriguez has fought late. He fades, man. He fades hard down the stretch. He's still dangerous, but that's an issue, and especially against Max Holloway, that's a fatal issue. If that's a flaw in your game, if you normally fade around the fifth, the way Max makes you fight, you're drowning way sooner than the fifth round. Uh, so I like Max's chances as I think about that at the moment. Uh, Here's kind of my issue with this, and this might seem really weird, but let me explain my thought process here. Boy, do I hate the Ultimate Fighter for reasons just like this fight. This shouldn't be that complicated. We should be getting. Here's what we should be getting. We should be getting Ortega and Volkanovski June, early July at the latest, given when they were kind of supposed to fight originally. I mean, they were supposed to fight already, and then, COVID protocols, I think it was Volkanovski who got it, and, he's mentioned it sucks. But, so, assuming he would have been okay physically, that's when we should have got it. If not already, then it should have been rescheduled for something much more timely than The Ultimate Fighter. Because now, we've had to wait for it to film, it's about to start airing, we have to wait for all of it to air, then we have to get to the pay-per-view, then we have to wait to see how each guy comes out of it. The champion is the only relevant fighter when talking about Max Holloway. And see, it is a pointless logjam to divisions. Max Holloway should not have to fight anyone but the champion after what he did to Calvin Kattar. Rewatch that fight if you don't believe me. That's a historic beating. And that is true numerically. That is one of the worst beatings anyone in UFC history has taken. I'm not saying the worst. Numerically, it's the worst. But I think if you wanted to argue long-term consequences, there are other beatings you could argue. That somewhat remains to be seen with Kattar. But that's still historic beating against a guy surging towards the top of that division, and Holloway just abused that man. And instead of getting the next title shot, he now has to fight Yair Rodriguez because the title picture is tied up basically for the rest of the year. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. I don't like anything about it. And this fight is just kind of emblematic of, or symptomatic of that problem that I have with the Ultimate Fighter and what it does to divisions. Especially a division like featherweight. Featherweight does not need this. At all. Featherweight has a lot of contenders. Not the least of which is Max Holloway. And I know Holloway and Volkanovski for a third time might be a rough sell. Because Volkanovski beat him twice. Whatever you think about the second fight. If you think Max won the first fight, I take serious issue with your scoring. You want to score the second fight for him? Cool. I don't disagree. I don't disagree one iota. I scored it for Volkanovski, and I have every time I've watched it. But that fight swings on a single round, basically. And it was a close enough round that it's not a hill I'm going to die on that there's no way Max Holloway could have conceivably won that fight. That's not true. But Volkanovski has beat him twice, both times they fought. And that's kind of the long and the short of that. Now, Max is just a good enough fighter to have wrecked the rest of the division, and he's going to kill off another contender here in all probability. You got Rodriguez, who the UFC's been trying to get into the title picture for a while, but for any number of reasons, some of which were within their control, some of which were not. That's constantly stumbled. Now you're throwing your next potential rising contender. You already did this with Kattar, which made more sense at the time. Now you're doing it with Yair, and Max is, again, I fully anticipate Max beating Yair Rodriguez to within an inch of his life and probably stopping him. Because he's Max freaking Holloway. But I don't care much for that fight in the sense that what it represents. Again, in a vacuum, Max Holloway fighting Yair Rodriguez, who could possibly complain about that in and of itself? And I'm certainly not. But what it means, again, what it represents, I just don't care for it. All right, we're gonna get some shorter hits here, but let's talk very briefly. Okay, we got something combat sports related. Um, for those of you who watch professional wrestling, and since I cover it, I cannot insult you. I could, but I'm not going to, because again, I cover professional wrestling 3 nights a week, more or less. Um, WWE came to a mutual parting of the ways with their most recent hire post WrestleMania for a commentator for the lead commentary role on Monday Night Raw. They shuffled around they shuffled around personnel. They released a couple of people that kind of surprised me. Todd Phillips. They released Samoa Joe, which I thought was just a categorical mistake. Joe, not only a great announcer, but an incredible ring talent. Anyway, they brought in Adnan Virk, and apparently everyone kind of realized that was not a good pairing, wasn't working out. So after about 7 weeks, they parted ways with him. The new lead play-by-play personnel for Monday Night Raw is former Bellator commentator, former UFC commentator, and at this point I assume former host of a show on SiriusXM Radio, Jimmy Smith. I have no idea how Jimmy Smith is going to mesh with the WWE broadcast style, but I thought Jimmy Smith was a very capable broadcaster in Bellator. He was a very, very capable broadcaster in the UFC. I was a little bit surprised when he and the UFC kind of parted ways. That surprised me a little. Again, it's not him with the UFC necessarily. It was again who you're contracted to and whatnot in that case is a little bit funky. But I was surprised to see him let go from that role. I thought he was very good at it. I wish him well, and I hope he does a good job for the product. I don't watch Raw unless I'm covering it because it kind of sucks. To just kind of throw that out there, the last couple of episodes of Raw that I have covered have been. One of them was dismal. One of them was just the worst. Just the worst. So again, I wish him well. Hope he does a good job. Hope he gets paid. I don't have anything bad to say about him at all. So yeah, that again, combat sports adjacent. Slightly more relevant to the UFC. Jon Jones announced via Twitter that he has retained the services of Richard Schaefer. Now, for those of you who may not know that name, Richard Schaefer is the former CEO of Golden Boy, the boxing promotion. He was largely considered the brains behind the success of Golden Boy. Oscar De La Hoya was kind of the public face and remains so now that those two parted ways. We can get into that a little bit, but Schaefer kind of made things work. He kept the wheels turning, and then when Canelo and Oscar fell out, Schaefer was a little bit part of that, and Schaefer wound up again. So Schaefer's gone his own way. Oscar's still trying to run Golden Boy, for however successful you think that promotion's going at the moment. And after Jorge Linares kind of failed to do a whole lot against Devin Haney for most of their fight on Saturday, which I provided watch-along material for with Mark Radulich. If you're interested, you can find that over on the W2M network. I don't know about the ins and outs of Golden Boy enough, but it's a little bit dicey, I think, with them at the moment. So Schaefer will be in some capacity working with Jon Jones. Jon and his previous management group, what was it, First Round Management, I think? Don't quote me on that. I apologize if I have that wrong. But they terminated that relationship a while ago, by like a month or so, I think, somewhere in that range. That just wasn't working out anymore. So Jon with new representation, someone who Dana White spoke fairly positively about Schaefer actually when he was asked about it. So we'll see if that potentially is a more profitable avenue for Jon to get something in the UFC moving forward. But it's something to pay attention to. If bigger things start happening for Jon Jones in the near future, that will be a significant portion of why. All right, last bit of news here before we check Twitter at least. Another bit of boxing news here, but if you guys are not watching or not familiar with the great Nonito Donaire. He made history last night when he broke his own record to become the oldest champion at 118 pounds in boxing history. He stopped. Oh, God, the guy's name escapes me. I'm gonna find it. Give me just a second here. Something French. Nordine Ubali. Ubali, that was it. Yeah. He stopped him in the fourth round. Knocked him out. To at 38 become the oldest WBC. This would be the oldest bantamweight champion. Bantamweight in boxing being 118 pounds ever. Donaire in 2019, excuse me, in November of 2019, had, for my money, the fight of the year in all of boxing when he lost a decision to Naoya Inoue. And if you're not hip to Inoue, buddy, they don't call that man, even fighting at 118 and whatnot, the monster for nothing. Inoue will turn your lights out. But Donaire just doing what he's doing at his age, at that weight class, is ridiculously impressive. Things like speed and reflexes mean so much more at the smaller weight classes. We talk about that. That's true universally in combat sports. The lighter weight classes, you do not have the same career longevity that people at heavyweight do. You see guys in heavyweight fighting into their 40s. You just don't see that in the lighter weight classes because speed and reflex is everything, because technique is usually there already. And Donaire at 38, just again, he didn't. That was not a flash kind of come from behind against Ubali. He beat him pretty soundly. Again, for as long as that went 152 into the fourth, Donaire beat him, I think, in every round. Certainly, again, like the last two leading up to the stoppage, he was really putting it on Ubali. So just wanted to give some love to the ageless wonder Nonito Donaire. Heck of a fight, sir. And congratulations on the off chance anyone in that orbit hears this. Good for him. It was a heck of a performance. Keep doing what you're doing, man. The boxing world doesn't deserve people who are that successful like that, but it gets them on occasion. So good for him. Just wanted to make sure that got a little bit of shine here to the extent that what I talk about matters. All right, let me refresh Twitter, see if anything crazy happened in the combat sports space, and if not, we will go ahead and get into plugs. All right, nope, nothing crazy. So, plugs. What did I do this week? I did stuff. Again, I mentioned already, Mark Radulich and I did watch-along commentary for Devin Haney's lightweight title defense against Jorge Linares. I stepped in for a Damn You Hollywood, talking about the Amazon Prime movie Without Remorse, where we all kind of agree the movie sucked, and then Mark and I spent a bunch of time debating the relative merits of Amazon putting in a bid to buy MGM. So you can find that with other Damn You Hollywoods over in the Radulich Broadcasting Network under the W2M network. There was that. There was another Damn You Hollywood. Let me have a quick look here. There was a Damn You Hollywood for Army of the Dead. Am I back on the wrong? Yeah, sorry, wrong. I did. That was 2 weeks ago. You can listen to that if you're so inclined. There was a couple of things. Yeah, Mark and I did a TV party for the final season of the Netflix anime series Castlevania. This was season 4. You can listen to us talk about that. I guested on the Metal Hammer of Doom, because in no small part because I suggested the album. We covered Jonathan Young and his band, which is really just him, Galactic Kraken. The first, which is, for the record, Galactic Kraken is like the best name ever. That is so good. We covered his album Starship Velociraptor. So if you're so inclined, you can listen to myself, Mark Radulich, and Jesse Starcher talk about music. And so you can find some re-airs. Oh, re-airing earlier today, we have started re-airing the old podcast I used to host called Everyone Loves a Bad Guy. This is not the first episode in chronological order for that series, but to be synergistic, gotta hate that word, with other Disney content, we are re-airing this Sunday and next Sunday my two-part look at Disney villains. Part 1 is everything up through the Disney Golden Age, stopping just before the Disney Renaissance. Part 2 is Renaissance until the contemporary airing in 2013, so that would have been Frozen, I'm pretty sure. So you can listen to those if you're so inclined. I liked hosting that show a lot. I did it until it was time not to do it, as the phrase goes, but I have very fond memories of that show and occasionally debate bringing it back in some capacity. So that's what I've got. This coming week, there will be a Damn You Hollywood on Tuesday for Cruella, which is apparently a dumpster fire set to all your favorite songs from the 70s, all of which inevitably cost Disney $200 million to make, which blows my mind. Wednesday, there will be a Damn You Hollywood for A Quiet Place Part 2, and I think that's it for me this week. Yeah, those two things. So be on the lookout. Saturday, I will have coverage of UFC on ESPN Plus 47. And next Sunday, we will be back here talking about what happened, including, depending on when things air, I'm not sure the timing on this, but I might be able to review the Floyd Mayweather versus Logan Paul exhibition boxing match. Because depending on, again, kind of other things allowing, Mark and I will be covering that. We will have some live watch-along stuff for you. So that's a thought. That is definitely a thought. All right. Let me see. Last thing. Tomorrow, Monday, is Memorial Day here in the United States. So just please, everyone, remember, because apparently even the Vice President of the United States is unable to remember what that means. For those of you who don't know, there are 3 armed services-related holidays here in the United States. Labor Day, Veterans Day, and Memorial Day. There's enough people in my own country who don't necessarily understand the distinction between the 3. Allow me to spell it out. Labor Day is for those currently serving. Veterans Day is for those who have served. Memorial Day is for those who lost their lives in service. So it's a fairly somber holiday. Doesn't mean don't gather with friends and family and whatnot, as long as you can do so safely. I'm going to. But remember, this is about those who gave their lives. So, to everyone who has someone in their life who gave their lives in service, I don't have any words. What am I going to say? I'm nobody. But it is a time to remember that. So please do so. And yeah, I will be back here next week, per usual. Thank you all very much for tuning in, for sharing this show around. That always helps. I will see you all next time. Until then, stay safe out there, and please continue to be well, be safe, and behave.